The largest, most powerful industries are often both the most resistant to change and the most in need of it. In this episode of UpTech Report, I speak with Dipanwita Das, the founder and CEO of Sorcero, who recognized the need for life science and insurance industries to organize, interpret, and refine massive amounts of unstructured text. Sorcero is building the digital tools to help businesses develop governing knowledge bases, unify systems, automate workflows, and help massive corporations operate with the efficiency of a nimble startup. Dipanwita discusses the path from human intelligence to artificial intelligence and the inspiration she draws from science fiction and fantasy. Thanks so much for joining me, Dipanwita. I'm excited to learn more about Sorcero, how it got started, your direction and what's coming up next, and how you continually personally innovate and move forward. So first off, tell me, what year did it start and where are you guys located?
So we're based in Washington, D.C. Our offices are in Adams Morgan. We got started formally in April 2018. So we're getting on to about 20 months.
Oh, wow. Are you VC-backed or bootstrapped?
We are VC-backed. We closed earlier this year our pre-seed convertible note. So we raised about 1.7 on it. And actually are in the middle of a fundraise right now.
Wow. How big is your team so far?
So we just hit 14.
Wow. Awesome. This is now at the beginning, you've got your direction, you're moving forward. Last year you started. What's the area, industry that you're focused on helping?
So our go-to-market is in life sciences. We primarily work with med device, pharma, biotech companies. We also support skilled trades. So we support a couple of organizations in the skilled trades and are moving into insurance as sort of our next vertical.
Gotcha. What's the pain point then that you really help solve for these folks?
In late 2016, some of my clients through my previous consulting firm started coming to me and wanting AI solutions, which is as broad and as nuts as it can get. So as I dug in to what that could mean and what real world applications there were of the current technology that we have in the market, there were two things that jumped out at me. First is that there are certain kinds of industries and there are certain industries that need this more than anything else. So those are technical industries. We like to refer to them as dragons. So they have a lot of power. They're typically old. They're whimsical, risk averse, and they guard their treasure. They're very determined in guarding their treasure. So if you look at them, life sciences jumps out, insurance jumps out at you, fintech, supply chain, these sorts of industries that run the world. And what these industries really need to stay competitive and to grow and maintain their margins and market share is to be able to leverage their jewels the most. And they are mostly in the form of technical information, business knowledge, nuance, understanding markets, understanding customers. And a lot of the data is in unstructured text. And it is not just distributed and hard to find, but it's also hard to tell the relationship between two different data streams or three different data streams. That's one. So, first is zeroing in on certain industries. And second is there are lots and lots of job functions and job roles in each of these industries, and not all of them are as important as the others. So we zeroed in again on the technical workflows or the technical job roles that really drive the business of these industries. And you'll find a good way of checking that is, what are expert-driven job functions that cannot be replaced by a machine? Where a machine, even if very, very good at predictive analytics or search or whatever it is, it by no means can the human being being replaced. And that's sort of the two indicators that we take into account in choosing a life sciences or insurance, and then choosing the job functions we support in those industries.
This being a year in and the plans going forward, are you still then finding that product market fit, would you say? Have you getting closer to crossing the chasm?
Yeah, I believe we are. I think we've got initial product market fit. We spent a lot of time on the research and the customer interview side of things before we started officially selling. So we spoke to a little over 200 companies in life sciences and healthcare before we chose what vertical was the one that we would go to market with. And we're delighted to come back and report back and say that sales cycles, notwithstanding our assumptions around the vertical and the use case, have been corroborated by the industry. That's great. I believe that we're going to be more like growth trajectory from Q3 2020 onwards, and in sort of moving sales from pilot and demo driven to more case study driven. That's sort of where we are at. So we're slowly getting to a point where we'll have enough case studies or enough success stories to start the sales cycle at just a different level.
So 5 years from now, where do you see yourself?
I think 5 years from now, the first thing is that we will have established ourselves in two different verticals. And, we're choosing life insurance, life sciences and then insurance for that reason. One sort of is very closely related to each other, and being able to draw sort of tie a ribbon around both of it. So the information that life sciences needs to accumulate, organize, and distribute is often in service to the needs of the insurance industry. And a lot of the information and formatting and data processing that the insurance industry do is also oftentimes coming from life sciences. So I think that flow coming together is really important for us. In 5 years, we expect to have established that and growing accordingly, where we will have built that singular workflow that captures both the sides of the problem. That's certainly one.
Got it. But that synergy, I can see that then in 5 years between those two things. Obviously, even though it's only been a little over a year now, or around a year, that I'm sure there's a lot of things you've learned. Is there anything that you can share of hurdles that you're able to cross that other entrepreneurs could hopefully maybe learn from and not have to go through?
I get to hear this a lot from some of the enterprises we work with. So sometimes when we first meet an enterprise that has a use case that we can solve for them or serve them, they tell us that working with startups is hard for them as well. There is a certain impatience in startups that doesn't go very well with their buying behavior. So I get a lot of apologies from folks going, listen, thank you so much for being patient with us. Thank you so much for sending the extra material. We really need this to make a case to buy you. I think one of the things I have realized is that there's so much that you can do as the vendor in question. But at the end of the day, it will back into an enterprise's normal buying behavior and legal procedures. So just going in expecting that is really great. Not expecting that in 2 months, and you may on occasion in a month have a customer, but more likely it's going to be 6 to 7. It's going to involve many, many steps and potentially 2 months of silence. That is one thing. I think the second is also very related to that, is that no deal is ever dead. I'll give you a story. So it was really funny. We were sitting around a conference room in our offices with two of our investor advisors and the revenue team, which is my colleague Sean and I and our interim COO. And I was like, oh, great. Company A is dead. Let's just scratch that from the list. We're doing a review, right? And I say that, and I open up my inbox, and I have an email from them saying, we're ready to get started. And I was just like, come on. And this is 8 months later. So I think the first thing is that, and they weren't silent for 8 months, but we've been talking to them for 8. So I think one of the things with enterprise sales is just realizing that even when there's been months of silence, they may be talking about you every day. You just don't know. So yeah,
those are two very powerful tips to share of knowing it takes a long time. Don't rush it as a startup, and also a deal is never dead. I like that. No. Now going forward to realize this vision, what hurdles do you see you're going to need to overcome going forward?
I think the customer success process is going to be very interesting for us. At a pilot stage, and one of the reasons I like pilots, particularly at this stage in our company, is because it allows us to get to know our users. So that launch and implementation and customer success plan is really well done and thoughtful. But I see one of our hurdles is sort of as fast as possible standardizing that customer success process. So what happens after someone signs a contract? How do you launch a new product or a new application, a new piece of software? How do you ensure adoption and growth? How do you serve them? How, the role of support and the role of customer success. That part is something that we're going to have to put a lot of time into, and we're already starting to do that. And the reason we're so hyper focused on that is only about 8% of AI pilots actually convert and scale. So wow. It's very interesting that these, because again, end to end, a pilot could take 6-8 months. That's fine. But to actually flip from that and hit that scale, that's much rarer than one thinks. So we're very, very focused on that. And I see that to be a continuous sort of thing that we're going to have to get better and better at.
It's good to realize the challenge and what you're working on, and that in order to achieve what you're moving forward to. For you personally, how do you innovate? How are you getting new ideas and thoughts to stay current and move forward?
So I read a lot, and I mean a lot. I probably spend anything between 2 and 3 hours a day reading, sporadically through the day. It's articles, it's magazines, it's blogs, it's a lot of things.
Do you have any favorite blogs or articles that you go to on a semi-regular basis?
What's that podcast? I've only started listening. The Masters of Scale has been really good. So, the hard thing about hard things, the Ben Horowitz book, that's become a bit of my favorite. One of the things is that there comes a critical point where you're like, wait, I've read all of the startup books and I follow all of the blogs, and beyond a point, none of them really make sense. You're like, this doesn't apply to me. Why isn't this panning out? And I think the minute you stop seeking a formula, it's very freeing. So I felt like that book, particularly for me, was very freeing, because all it did was remind me personally that things are going to be hard, and your hard is not going to look like someone else's hard. So that's been really great. So those are a couple of books. I actually read quite a bit of science fiction and fantasy. I find it really refreshing. I find the context change really good for me, but it also allows me to be creative and imaginative. And, particularly science fiction gives me great product ideas. And I want to say fantasy helps me understand people better. It's really weird, but it does. I love it. I'll give you an example. So, for example, Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite books, has been since I was 10. And when I read it, I was very young. And the thing that stuck with me from the age of 10 was the way Galadriel turned down the ring from Frodo. And that act was an act of saying no to power. I mean, she was doing it as an act of penance, but that ability to say no to power is just it's a very powerful ability. And it kind of stuck with me. So I find that fantasy certainly helps me understand personalities better and people better. And science fiction just gives me great product ideas, just really, really great one. Sorcero is one of the books that inspired Sorcero was Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age.
Diamond Age. Okay, nice. I'll have to check that one out. I agree with you that science fiction, I mean, that's where we come up with our ideas of what we want to build. We read books and we're like, wow, does that not exist?
Yeah.
And I love your point that fantasy can even help us understand people the way that then writers can. Now I'm going to look at Lord of the Rings completely differently.
I may have spent way too much time on everything Tolkien, but it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
That's awesome. We'll end with this last question. What kind of upcoming technology are you personally most excited about or interested in?
Interesting. I'm really excited about the interface between natural language processing and AR/VR. I think particularly because we've been talking a lot with folks in the skilled trades and what can AR/VR combined with really good NLP do for you. In the sense that if you are wearing a headset and experiencing something or learning something new, what is the role of language and NLP related assistance? That part I am quite interested in. And then entirely unrelated to anything to do with AI or software, I'm really interested in nano. tech in general, and particularly miniaturization around med devices. As I dig more into this space, I've come across a bunch of startups that are doing really amazing and very, very interesting work in hardware. So I'm just very intellectually curious about it. It's just so far from anything I do, and particularly miniaturization of batteries. Jake's really interesting stuff.
You're keeping your eye on many different types of technology. I love it.
I don't know that I'm ever going to do it, but I certainly see why it's so powerful, and it's very interesting. It helps my brain to learn a lot about someone else's business. So yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people go to learn more, and what do you suggest the first good step for them to take?
So please go to Sorcero.com to learn more about the company and learn more about our philosophy and what we do for our customers. And then if you want to talk more, info at Sorcero.com is always live, and we're happy to talk to them.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to UpTechReport.com and let us know.